Winds are up to 75 miles per hour. This is the visible imagery showing that the center there. And you can see that central dense overcast pretty evidenced here. So we're not really seeing an eye figure on the map, but it's approaching what's called the Isle of Youth, or it's the southern island there off the coast of Cuba, and winds are at 75 miles per hour. So obviously, if you look at this image here, you can see this storm is beginning to take some shape, and as it heads towards the Gulf, bets are that this is going to quickly intensify. It's moving into some very warm water. It will be, as it moves into the Gulf, even warmer than where it's at now, and that should allow for some rapid strengthening over the course of the next 48 hours as it pushes its way toward the Louisiana coastline. Right now, the 1 o'clock advisory is out. Winds are at 75 miles per hour. It's basically over the Isle of Youth there, so it's going to be crossing over the western tip of Cuba. I don't expect that it's going to have a lot of weakening, though, from that area. Not too mountainous in this portion of Cuba, so it should just slide on over and here be in passing over into the Gulf later on by this evening. And then the track pushes it toward the Louisiana coastline. This is, of course, the latest track that we have from the Hurricane Center. Underneath this, you can see what are called the spaghetti models, or it's all the different specialized computer models. And the way those operate is they take the initial conditions of the storm and they tweak those conditions a bit, and it gives us various scenarios and outcomes as to where we could see perhaps some shifts in the track before this makes the landfall Sunday evening. And right now, the Hurricane Center brings it up to a strong Category 3 storm. We'll say, looking at some of the guidance here, some of the models that have been updated today, I would not be surprised if we're talking about a Category 4 before this is over with. It's going to likely be a very strong hurricane as it approaches the Louisiana coastline Sunday evening. But here it is again. You'll see some split in the models, and that's why there's what we call that cone of error, which carries us out all the way from Lake Charles, yes, all the way east here to areas of coastal Mississippi for where this could eventually come ashore, which means there's some room for this to go a little more east. There's also some room for it to go a little more west. Now, if we keep this center track exactly where it is now, which is going to be just west of Homa, moving up essentially over Baton Rouge, we're not going to have a lot of problems here in southwest Louisiana. But the reason why we can't just go to bed, sleep on this storm as if it's not going to affect us, is that because there is still some wiggle room here as to where this could go. And it doesn't take a whole lot of shift west now in the track for us to begin to see impacts. And even more of a shift west would mean major impacts to southwest Louisiana. So that's why we have to continue those preparations today, if you've already made those, getting the supplies, get your car fueled up just in case. Now, obviously, if this track does not shift and we're talking about a landfall here in this general area, we're not going to have to worry about things like evacuations or major problems or power outages and things like that. But if this goes maybe another 50, 60 miles to the west, it's going to be a whole different story, especially with those wind and rain impacts for southwest Louisiana. Now, obviously, if we stay on the western side of the center, we're not going to have any problems with storm surge. That's not going to be an issue for us. But again, like I said, see that track, there are errors that get taken all the way up through Cameron Parish on the western side of the cone, and eastern side of the cone is all the way over into Mississippi. That's why we have to continue to monitor this closely. Now, we do have, and again, this is all just based on the timeline and evolution based on when this will make a landfall. We're in that 48-hour window now. So the Hurricane Center has issued hurricane watches out from Cameron all the way over to the Mississippi-Alabama state line. All of those parishes and counties now under a hurricane watch. That goes up all the way to Mississippi there north of Baton Rouge. So all those places, including Hammond, Covington, and all those locations north of New Orleans under a hurricane watch. We do have that even in our viewing area for Jeff Davis Parish. You're under that hurricane watch as well farther inland. And that's just because of the fact that we're working on a small timetable here of when impacts will begin, combined with the uncertainty that we still have in the forecast, because obviously all of these areas are not going to experience hurricane conditions ultimately where this makes landfall. You may have those hurricane force conditions out maybe 50, 60 miles from the center. You're not going to have the entire coastal area of South Louisiana experiencing hurricane conditions, and that's why we have the watch out. We're not under a warning yet, but as the uncertainty lessens with the forecast, and the Hurricane Center narrows that cone, they're likely going to be adjusting where these warnings and advisories are out here, maybe as early as tonight or tomorrow. And again, as new model data comes out, again, that's what's going to give us, again, better certainty in the forecast and better confidence in the forecast. And you're also going to have further updates from this. This is what's called the wind probabilities for tropical storm force conditions, and this is all based on percentages. It's a National Hurricane Center product, and you'll notice where you get those oranges and reds, that's where the percentage for tropical storm force sustained winds increases. And it does show Lake Charles and southwest Louisiana in a good 60 to 70% chance for at least tropical storm force conditions. But as that, what I want to stress here is, as that cone tightens, as that area of a landfall impact becomes more certain, this will obviously shrink one way or the other. But it's the problem is that we are right now, again, so close to perhaps seeing some impacts if this were to shift farther west, that we can't let our guard down. And that's why I'm not guaranteeing you we're going to have issues here, but I also can't guarantee you that we won't be bracing for potentially a major hurricane, just simply because of the uncertainties that lie, the forecast error that you get in a track 48 hours out. And with us being in that cone, we certainly do need to stay prepared for the worst case scenario, even though right now good agreement in a lot of the models that it's going to stay just far enough east, and it would mean minor issues here. Now, this is the GFS model. This is the American model with the latest data that we have right now on those wind speeds and gusts. Where you see the white number, that's the sustained wind. The orange number there is the wind gust that's forecast. Now, this model is at about 100-kilometer resolution, so it's not giving us, again, high resolution data, but it gives us a general idea, a general swath of likely where we're going to have some of those stronger wind gusts. And you'll see over toward Lafayette, this is at 8 p.m. on Sunday, it's showing even with that center passing east of there, well into tropical storm force wind gusts here, maybe up to 50, 60 miles per hour. As we head towards Sunday evening and into the overnight hours. Again, that's where it's plotting the center of landfall, and you'll see how close. It's not going to take much of a shift west here for us to be in on some of those more problematic issues with wind. Right now it's showing wind gusts of maybe 25 to 35 here in Lake Charles overnight into Monday morning. That obviously would not be strong enough to cause major problems. We can have 30-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts on a normal day here, especially in our spring and fall seasons when we have those gustier winds. And notice the wind direction. That would be coming in out of the north. So again, these are not troubling numbers for us here in southwest Louisiana with the latest data. Now, if this shifts 50, 60 miles west and say maybe we're putting the center over Lafayette, you can almost do interpolation here on your own, carry that red and pink a little farther west, then we're certainly going to begin to have major issues for Jeff Davis, Allen, and maybe even into portions of Cameron Parish on our eastern side of our viewing area. So that just shows you how close we are to extreme problems here in southwest Louisiana. And while that uncertainty remains in the forecast, we have to stay prepared for that possibility. And that's one thing that we're trying to convey now, is that we're trying to convey the uncertainty of the forecast. We're trying to also convey the need to stay prepared, because we're not working on a long period of time here when impacts would begin or not for southwest Louisiana. Now, they have issued as well a storm surge watch out for Cameron Parish. That would only be if the storm made a gigantic westward turn and we would begin to see winds onshore. I showed you that map there before. The winds that we're going to be seeing with this system are going to be northerly winds or offshore winds, and so we're not going to see any surge unless we're taking a direct hit. It'd have to come all the way over into Cameron Parish, where we would have that right front quadrant of the storm before we would have any risk of storm surge. And so that's one thing that is most likely not going to be the case for our area. I think our main risk is going to be how much of a westward shift we see between now and Sunday, and where this thing could come ashore with regards to our wind impacts and heavy rainfall and flood potential as we head into Sunday night into Monday. Again, this is the American model. Again, we'll get new data out. We'll have the newest model data will be out tonight, so make sure you follow Wade Hampton, meteorologist Wade Hampton, with the forecast later today, but especially tonight. 10 o'clock is going to give us that new data from the models, and the model data that we're seeing is being ingested from the hurricane hunters that are out there flying, and that helps us out even more. Now, this is the American model latest one that we have in our system here. This is a major hurricane. This is at least going to be a Category 3, strong Category 3, maybe Category 4 hurricane and landfall. So, unfortunately, this is going to cause a lot of problems for our state. Now, we don't wish anything upon anyone, and we certainly don't want to see another disaster in Louisiana, but that's unfortunately likely what's going to happen. Now is this track would mean devastating problems to southeast Louisiana, New Orleans, even up to Baton Rouge, with especially the wind. Now the surge, obviously areas along the coastal areas would see that be the most problem, but this is going to be a bad storm for our state, so I don't want to discount this as oh, we're so glad that it's missing us here in Lake Charles, because we don't wish this upon anyone. And unfortunately, the way things are looking right now with the trends, this is going to be a major hurricane. So this is going to be a problem for the state of Louisiana regardless if we skirt by and somehow manage to miss the impacts here. This is the graph model. This is another model that we show, and it did well during Hurricane Laura last year. This is our IBM in-house model that we ingest here into our graphic system. It's one of the higher resolution models, and it too is doing a pretty good job at keeping things in line with the GFS or the American model upon landfall. This is showing 7 p.m. on Sunday, somewhere around Terrebonne Parish here, Homa area, taking the landfall by Sunday evening, again as a major hurricane. So this too is showing rapid intensification as it approaches the coast, likely still intensifying as it approaches the coast. Thereupon you lie even more impacts. You always get more impacts like we saw from Laura with an intensifying storm as it makes landfall versus a storm that's weakening, which is what we saw with Delta. That storm is actually weakening as it made a landfall, and that was kind of an interesting storm. It was an asymmetrical storm, and a lot of the winds were on the western side of Delta that caused problems, a lot of that, but this is going to be more of a symmetrical type storm, so it's going to have those more classic problems of the right front quadrant, obviously causing the surge and the highest winds. But this is also going to be a storm that will be strengthening as it approaches the coast. And you always get more problems from a storm that is on a strengthening phase as it approaches the coast. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be a repeat of Laura for our friends to the east, but I think it certainly could rival Laura in intensity, or at least come close to being a Category 4 hurricane. So that's why we're very concerned not only about that, but just the proximity to where we are here in southwest Louisiana for any sudden shifts that this system could take, because it's going to be such a major hurricane, and that's the problem. Yeah, I mean, if we have a track, if we could tell you 100% right now that this is where it's going to make a landfall, I could go home and sleep tonight without any worries, but that's just not where we are at this particular time. So we've got to watch things closely over the next 24 hours. Be ready to take action on Saturday if we are calling for an evacuation, or if we're saying at this point we're going to be looking at more major problems here in southwest Louisiana, maybe not necessarily an evacuation, but if we get any closer to where this makes landfall, we're going to have wind problems, we're going to have power outages, and we're going to have a lot more rain than the models here are showing right now. So that's the problem that we are faced with, just that enough uncertainty combined with the fact this is a fast-moving storm and will be approaching our coastline by the time we head towards Sunday evening here across southwest Louisiana. So it does not give us a whole lot of time to prepare regardless of the impacts that we're forecasting right now. So that's why you got to go ahead and be prepared. And some of those things, just make sure you have your car fueled up. You don't want to be driving on empty. If you've got car issues, go ahead and get those dealt with today. Don't wait until this weekend, because it may be time at that point that we're calling for some abrupt action if need be for our area. We're not calling for that now. You don't need to evacuate now, and that's not what I'm telling you. It's just that if we're moving into the weekend and we're talking about some major shifts in the track on Saturday, landfall on Sunday, you're going to have to take action and drop what you're doing pretty immediately, and you don't want to have to be worried about tying up those loose ends around your home or making sure you have enough food or water. And even if we're not evacuating but staying here, and dealing with things like power outages and things like that, you want to go ahead and have that stuff shored up and prepared for at this point. The next big update from the National Hurricane Center will be out at 4 o'clock this afternoon. That's when, if we were to see any big or any really shifts at all in the track, that's when that would occur. So the way it happens is the Hurricane Center puts out those full updates at 4 a.m., 10 a.m., 4 p.m., and 10 p.m. And so if we see adjustments, those other, like the 1 o'clock advisory, for example, that's an intermediate advisory. They don't usually typically change things in the track unless there is some glaring difference that's all of a sudden occurred, and they can, but typically it's going to be that 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock update, AM and PM. And we should know much more by then. Obviously, the closer we get to landfall, the level of confidence in our forecast is going to grow. It's just a matter of by that point, it may be a little too late to be thinking about preparing. So go ahead and do that now. Again, a week's worth of food and water for each person is always a good idea to have anytime we're in hurricane season, just because of the off chance that we do have something quickly spin up. The Gulf of Mexico is not a very big body of water considering the Atlantic, so when things start to fire up or change course in the Gulf, it can lead to limited lead time to prepare for impacts, and that's why we want you to go ahead and do that now. 30 days worth of medications, fill those prescriptions today, tomorrow, get those ready, before the storm arrives. If you've got battery banks, I've got 2 or 3 left over. In fact, eerily, I had to go and find mine yesterday. They were still in a backpack that I had left over from Hurricane Laura, so that just shows a lot of people may not even have fully unpacked from last year. You may have those supplies and things like battery chargers and things like that. Just make sure they're charged up and have extra batteries for your flashlights. And again, fuel up before the storm hits. Like we saw after the hurricane last year as well, you're not going to be able to find ATMs that work. So go ahead and have some extra cash on hand to pay for things that you may have to get, like fuel or food, if you can find stores that are open. So that's one thing, again, you want to have to be just prepared for, just in case. And you know what? If we don't need any of this, that would be a wonderful thing, and you would be prepared for the next storm, because we're in a very, very busy pattern right now of hurricane season. We're in the peak of hurricane season, and we will be until about mid-October. So you want to go ahead now and just keep all of this stuff. We don't hopefully won't need this, but in the off chance that you do need it, you'll be glad that you did not wait until the last minute out there. Obviously, it's a pretty afternoon here. I'll go over the forecast for today just because I didn't get a whole lot of time to talk about it at noon with limitations of time. So just so that you're aware, if you are out there working today, it's just a hot, sunny afternoon right now in Lake Charles. We've got a 90-degree temperature. Radar is not showing a whole lot out there. We have a few scattered showers over southeastern portions of the state, over closer to New Orleans. A little bit of a tropical wave here that's pushing westward, and it certainly has kicked up a lot of thunderstorms this afternoon from New Orleans even up into southern portions of Mississippi. So that's not good for those folks, because they're trying now to desperately rush their preparations to completion, and so they're having to deal with thunderstorms there. That activity is moving westward. I do expect it to begin to move into southwest Louisiana here by late this afternoon. We'll start to see those scattered thunderstorms move our way. So we're going to be watching for those again later on. We're talking probably after about 4 or 5 o'clock and maybe through sunset. So I know that's going to catch a lot of you after work today if you're home and you're going to be doing some things to maybe shore up outdoor things that could get blown around your house. And doing a lot of that probably toward that 5, 6 o'clock. Hopefully there will be some breaks. We're not guaranteeing you that you'll have thunderstorms, but there are some around, and they will be moving closer to our area again later on this afternoon. So just keep that in your mind, and keep that in mind today if you're going to be doing anything outside. 40 to 60% coverage of those storms later on this afternoon, and really for the rest of the week we'll continue to see those thunderstorm chances even into Saturday. Models are showing some of that from that the leftovers from that disturbance moving by us, and maybe even kicking up some showers and storms by tomorrow morning for coastal areas, and then back to scattered storms by tomorrow afternoon. So we're going to be battling that as well. So as you're making those preparations this weekend, tomorrow really being that last day that you need to go ahead and have things ready, because by Sunday that's when those impacts will begin. Now, if that track does shift farther west and looks like it may move closer to our area, the impacts will be a little more delayed because it would have more time out over the water. So that's one thing that we would likely be seeing some adjustments in the landfall time of when it would be coming ashore. But right now, it looks like southeast Louisiana landfall Sunday night. We're going to be watching it closely. Follow us for updates as the model data comes out. If things change, and they could change quickly, so that's why you need to have that plan in place and be ready to take action on, again, short notice as we head our way through the weekend and into Saturday and Sunday. We're going to do another update for you a little bit later on today, of course, with that new advisory that comes out at 4 o'clock. So make sure to follow us online, on air, and we'll keep you updated. Have a good day.